In quiet places, ancient stones hold stories. This story whispers of the Knights Templar, warrior monks who amassed wealth rivaling kings. Their name evokes awe. Theirs is a journey of faith and power, duty and ambition. They were innovators whose acumen laid the groundwork for systems we still recognize today. Their story teaches how quickly trust and influence can be ruined by greed and fear. What happened to them, and their unimaginable wealth? Their financial empire was built on trust. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ, or Templars, began as a small band of knights. They offered a shield to pilgrims in the Crusader states. Their seal, 2 knights on 1 horse, symbolized their poverty and brotherhood. Over 2 centuries they evolved into something else entirely. They became landowners, built castles and churches, and operated with autonomy. They were a state within a state. This transformation to international financiers was born of necessity. Their integrity allowed them to create a revolutionary financial system. As their wealth grew, so did suspicion. Their secrecy began to be viewed as sinister. The Templars were slowly becoming viewed as a threat. The Templars' financial empire began with a simple problem: the danger of carrying money on the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. The Templars offered a solution. Pilgrims could deposit money in London or Paris and receive a coded letter of credit. In the Holy Land, they could withdraw funds in local currency. This international system of credit transfer was soon used by merchants, nobles, and kings. The Templars became bankers for Europe and the Crusader states, managing accounts and transferring vast sums. They blended monastic discipline with military prowess and financial acumen. This concentration of power ultimately sowed the seeds of their destruction. The 12th century was a time of faith and danger. Pilgrimages to the Holy Land were perilous. Though routes opened after the First Crusade, the roads to Jerusalem were treacherous. Bandits and opportunistic lords preyed on vulnerable pilgrims. The dream of reaching the Church of the Holy Sepulchre often turned into a nightmare. Christian rulers lacked the resources to protect the pilgrim trails. A new kind of protection was needed. Knights who remained in the Holy Land dedicated themselves to this dangerous task, to protect the pilgrims on the road to Jerusalem. In 1119, 2 French knights, Hugues de Payens and Godfrey de Saint-Omer, approached King Baldwin II in Jerusalem. They proposed forming a new religious community, taking vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But unlike monks, they would take up the sword in service of God. Their mission was to protect Christian travelers. King Baldwin agreed, granting them a headquarters on the Temple Mount. This small band of 9 knights became known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ. Their reputation for courage and piety began to grow, embodying the ideals of the Crusades. The knights' first headquarters held immense symbolic importance. King Baldwin II granted them the Al-Aqsa Mosque, believed to be the original Temple of Solomon. For medieval Christians, it was the holiest site save for the Holy Sepulchre. Establishing their base there inextricably linked them to this legacy. They became the Knights of the Temple of Solomon, or Knights Templar. The Temple of Solomon evoked images of wisdom, immense wealth, and a direct connection to God. It lent the order ancient authority. They were guardians of the holiest site in Christendom. This symbolism transformed the order into something grander and more mystical. The name advertised their piety and sacred purpose. Living there shaped the Knights' identity. This reinforced their sense of divine mission. Their strict rule, formalized by Bernard of Clairvaux, governed every aspect of their lives. They were a disciplined, elite force. In 1129, the order was formally recognized by the Pope. This papal endorsement transformed them into an international institution. With the Church's blessing, they could recruit and raise funds across Europe. Initially, the Templars were knights trained for combat. They escorted caravans of pilgrims, deterring attackers. Their vows and religious devotion gave them a reputation for incorruptibility. Pilgrims trusted them, knowing they renounced worldly gain. This trust evolved beyond the battlefield. Pilgrims began asking the knights to guard their valuables. The Templars, with their fortified houses, were the logical choice for safekeeping. This function was a practical response to a real-world need. The Templars were reliable, organized, and always present. This permanence made them ideal guardians of long-term assets. This shift was the first step towards their financial role. They were building a reputation for integrity. The shield they offered was against loss and uncertainty. This trust would become the bedrock upon which they invented a new form of international finance. The journey to the Holy Land was not just a spiritual test. For every hopeful pilgrim, it was a gauntlet of dangers. Robbers, extortionists, and corrupt officials lurked along the narrow tracks and bustling ports. Men and women, carrying the life savings of entire families, faced a cruel reality. Gold and silver needed for passage, food, and offerings could vanish in an instant. Stories spread of pilgrims left penniless by highwaymen or forced into debt slavery after a single ambush. The road to salvation wound through a minefield of loss. Here, the Templars saw an opportunity born of necessity. They understood the fear that stalked the devout along the trade routes. Their fortified houses stood as beacons of safety, offering not only armed escort but something more radical, a promise of financial security. Pilgrims could leave their coin and valuables with the order, receiving a carefully written document in return. This was not a simple receipt. It was the quiet beginning of something entirely new, a portable, secure claim to wealth that could be redeemed far from home. In this system, the Templars took on a role both humble and revolutionary. They became the trusted middlemen of Christendom, their name a guarantee more powerful than any lock or iron chest. The risks of the journey were now greatly reduced. If a thief took your purse, it was a loss. If a thief took your letter, it was only a piece of parchment, useless without the secrets known only to the Templars themselves. This innovation was a product of the Order's unique position. Warriors bound by vows, they inspired confidence in all classes, peasants and princes alike. The financial relationship between Templar and Pilgrim was built on the very foundation of trust that the Order had spent decades earning on the battlefields and roads of the Holy Land. Gradually, the Templars' role as guardians of both soul and silver became inseparable. Medieval banking was born, not in the counting rooms of merchants, but in the perilous twilight between the altar and the sword. The Templars' greatest contribution to medieval finance was the letter of credit. To the modern eye, it looks deceptively simple, a parchment marked with ink sealed with wax and inscribed with secret symbols. But for a medieval pilgrim, it was a lifeline. The process began at a Templar preceptory in Europe, perhaps in the shadowed halls of the temple in Paris or beneath the rose window of London's Temple Church. The pilgrim would deposit a sum of money, surrendering their coins to the Order's custody. In exchange, they received a letter, the details of which were known only to trusted brothers of the Order. This letter was more than a note, it was a coded instruction. The Templars developed internal ciphers and marks that only their officials could decipher. These codes recorded not just the amount, but the identity and destination of the holder, ensuring that only the rightful bearer could claim the funds. In the event of loss or theft, the letter became useless to anyone but the intended pilgrim. This closely guarded system was an early form of the traveler's check, centuries before the idea would resurface in the modern world. The network of Templar houses, stretching from the windswept fields of England to the hot, stony courtyards of Jerusalem, allowed these credits to be transferred across vast distances. Each house communicated with its fellows through regular couriers, updating ledgers and confirming the authenticity of letters. The secrecy of the system was legendary. Not even kings could force the Templars to reveal the details of their clients' affairs. This discretion reinforced the Order's mystique, feeding both their reputation and the rumors that would one day bring about their ruin. In the dim candlelight of their scriptoriums, Templar clerks painstakingly recorded every transaction. The code was known only to a few senior brothers, and the methods were passed down in hushed instruction. To outsiders, the process appeared nearly magical, a sacred art, binding Christian Europe in invisible threads of trust. The Templars' letters of credit did not just move money, they moved confidence, allowing men and women to cross continents with their fortunes intact, shielded by faith in a red cross and a hidden cipher. The efficiency of Templar banking depended on more than clever letters. It required a vast, disciplined network, one that was, in its day, without equal. The Order's commanderies became outposts of stability, their stone walls sheltering not just knights but clerks, scribes, and administrators. Each house was linked to the others by a steady flow of messengers carrying news, instructions, and financial records along the arteries of Christendom. The Templars maintained their own fleet of ships, ensuring communication even across troubled seas. Within this network, rules were strict. Brothers were rotated between houses, not only to prevent corruption, but to ensure the uniformity of procedure. Ledgers were kept in duplicate, one copy remaining at the local house, the other sent to the Order's treasury in Paris or Jerusalem. Funds deposited in London could be drawn out in Acre, and every transaction was carefully recorded, verified, and reconciled. This attention to detail was rare in an age when most nobles kept their accounts on scraps of parchment or in memory alone. The order's international privileges granted by papal bulls allowed them to operate independently of local laws and taxes. This autonomy gave them an advantage over rival institutions. They could move gold and silver across borders without interference from greedy kings or suspicious bishops, and their vaults became the chosen resting place for royal treasuries and church tithes. The Templars' impartiality was legendary. They offered the same service to humble pilgrims as to monarchs and bishops, earning a reputation for fairness that was the envy of every moneylender and merchant in Europe. This pan-European infrastructure was the true marvel of Templar banking. It allowed them to guarantee payments, settle debts, and facilitate trade on a scale that no single kingdom could match. The sight of the red cross above a commandery door became a symbol of security and reliability. In a world of shifting borders and uncertain justice, the Templars offered something rare, a promise that a man's wealth would be waiting for him no matter how far he traveled or how long he wandered. Beyond letters of credit, the Templars quickly found themselves managing a growing array of financial services. Pilgrims and nobles alike entrusted them with deposits, secure in the knowledge that the order's resources and discipline would protect their fortunes. Over time, the Templars began to lend money, both to individuals and to monarchs, charging moderate fees or accepting repayment in land, privileges, or political favors. Their vaults in Paris and London became the safest repositories in Europe. So much so that even kings, including the later enemies of the order, kept their treasuries there. The Templar counting house was a scene of quiet industry. In rooms lined with chests and ledgers, clerks counted coin by candlelight, recording every transaction in neat coded script. Their bookkeeping methods were advanced for the age. Double-entry accounting, while not fully developed, was foreshadowed in their careful balancing of debit and credit, deposit and withdrawal. Security was paramount. Vaults were sealed with multiple locks, each key held by a different brother, and every opening was witnessed and signed. These financial services soon extended beyond the needs of the pilgrim. European nobles, often absent on crusade or embroiled in local wars, relied on the Templars to manage their estates, collect rents, and pay debts. Church officials deposited tithes, which the order would transfer to Rome or Jerusalem as needed. The Templars became the trusted bankers of Christendom, their clients ranging from the humblest widow to the Pope himself. In this quietly lit world of parchment and wax, the Templars forged the template for banking as we know it today. Their methods, precise, secretive, and disciplined, allowed money to flow across continents, supporting crusades, commerce, and pilgrimage alike. The counting house and the chapel stood side by side, and the sound of prayer was matched by the soft clink of coin. The birth of Templar banking was not a single invention but a series of steps, each one rooted in necessity and each one building towards a system that would change the world. The Templars' financial innovations quickly blossomed. What began as a service became the foundation of an empire built on trust. This empire's outposts were the commanderies. These were multifunctional hubs of Templar power, a fortress, a farm, a chapel, and a branch of an international bank. Their stone walls projected an image of permanence and security. By the late 13th century, the order controlled thousands of properties, the physical infrastructure of their financial system. The Templars acted as the secure intermediary. At the heart of this network was a disciplined command structure. It was an institution whose reputation for integrity was its most valuable asset. The trust placed in the Templars was absolute. The true foundation was the unbreakable bond of trust. The Templars' power was rooted in the land itself. From their earliest days, the order received donations from pious nobles and grateful patrons. Monarchs and lords would grant them vast estates. These gifts transformed the Templars into one of the largest landowners in all of Europe. They controlled immense tracts of farmland, forests, vineyards, and even entire villages. The Templars managed their estates with discipline and efficiency. The revenues provided a steady income stream that funded their operations and cemented their economic power. This role as landlords also gave them immense local influence. This vast portfolio of property and agricultural enterprise made the order almost entirely self-sufficient. This created a financial behemoth whose resources could rival those of the most powerful European monarchies. As the Templars' reputation grew, their clientele included the most powerful individuals in Christendom. They were entrusted with the treasuries of kings and the finances of the papacy itself. The Paris Temple evolved into an unofficial royal treasury for the French crown. Kings deposited state revenues there and relied on their administrative skills. The knights became the trusted financial advisors to the French monarchy and across Europe. The Templars were answerable only to the Pope, making them the natural bankers for the Holy See. They managed papal accounts, dispersed funds for crusades, and acted as the financial agents of the Vatican across Europe. By becoming the bankers to the powerful, the Templars placed themselves at the very center of European politics and finance. When a monarch's debts become too large, the creditor can easily become a target. The Templars built and operated their own fleet of ships. This Templar navy was a critical component of their power, giving them control over communication and transport across the Mediterranean Sea. Their ships, marked with the distinctive Red Cross, were a common sight in ports like Marseille, Genoa, Venice, and Acre. They ferried knights, horses, supplies, and pilgrims, forming a logistical lifeline for the Crusader states. This maritime capability gave them a significant commercial advantage. Templar ships also carried goods and passengers for a fee. The fleet was also essential for their financial operations, allowing them to move bullion and specie securely. Owning their own ships enhanced the security and secrecy of their financial transfers. The Templar fleet was, in essence, a fleet of armored bank vaults. The existence of this powerful private navy underscored the order's unique status as a state within a state. The Templars' political and legal autonomy was the single most important factor in the rise of their empire. Papal bulls like Omni Datum Optimum removed them from local authority. This freedom allowed them to operate as a sovereign entity with diplomatic immunity. This status was the bedrock of their financial success, allowing them to move capital without usual taxes. Kings trusted them, knowing their wealth was protected. However, this autonomy bred resentment. Kings grew wary of their wealth and organization. Their secrecy and private meetings fueled suspicion. Ultimately, the factors that enabled their rise sowed the seeds of their destruction. They were a state within a state, loyal only to the Pope, powerful but isolated. The Red Cross became a target. The Knights Templar were an institution shrouded in secrecy, initially born of practical necessity. Their financial operations involved coded letters, discreet transfers, and military intelligence, all of which depended on confidentiality. As a closed monastic order, their internal affairs and initiation ceremonies were private. This shield of necessity slowly curdled into a cloak of suspicion. As the Templars' power and wealth grew, so did the questions about what happened behind their commandery's walls. Rumors began to circulate, and the very privacy that protected them made them vulnerable to accusations. Stories emerged of knights denying Christ and worshipping Baphomet. The mystique that had been a source of strength began to work against them, creating a dangerous combination. The shadow of this secrecy would provide the perfect darkness for their enemies to gather and strike. By the 14th century, France was led by Philip the Fair, a king driven by a vision of an absolute French state. This required constant cash infusions. He had waged costly wars, debased coinage, and expelled Jews and Lombard bankers to seize their assets. Philip was perpetually in debt. The Knights Templar, his bankers, managed his accounts, but their wealth and autonomy threatened Philip's absolute authority. Destroying the order would cancel debts, seize assets, and eliminate an independent institution. The plan was audacious: discredit the order with accusations of heresy and idolatry. The trap was sprung. In the pre-dawn darkness of Friday, October 13th, 1307, royal agents moved across France. They stormed every Templar commandery, castle, and farm. The operation caught the knights completely by surprise. Most were arrested without a fight. Among those seized was Grandmaster Jacques de Molay. He, along with other Templars, was arrested and imprisoned. The most powerful military-religious institution in Christendom had been effectively neutralized. Royal proclamations detailed the supposed horrific crimes of the knights. The Templars were accused of being secret heretics, devil worshippers, and enemies of Christ. The arrested knights were handed over to royal inquisitors for interrogation. The long and brutal ordeal of the trials would begin. Once arrested, the Templars were subjected to torture. The methods were those of the medieval Inquisition, designed to extract confessions, regardless of truth. Knights were starved and kept in squalid dungeons. They were stretched on the rack. Their feet were held over fire. Other brutal techniques were routinely used. Under such agony, many knights broke. Faced with pain, A significant number confessed to the crimes they were accused of. However, many knights displayed fortitude, maintaining their innocence despite the torture. Many died during these interrogations. The case of the Grand Master Jacques de Molay was typical. He initially confessed under immense pressure. His confession was a major propaganda victory for the king. These confessions formed the basis of the prosecution's case. News of the arrests sent shockwaves to the papal court. Pope Clement V was initially outraged. The Templars were a papal order subject only to his authority. Clement wrote to the French king protesting the arrests. However, Pope Clement was in a position of profound weakness. He resided in Avignon, making him susceptible to pressure from the French king. Faced with the threat of schism, Pope Clement finally capitulated. At the Council of Vienne he issued a papal bull, Vox in Excelso, which officially suppressed the Knights Templar. The order's reputation had been too gravely damaged, and had become a source of scandal for the Church, and therefore, it must be dissolved. The great financial and military empire of the Templars was officially brought to an end. When the Templars were crushed, King Philip IV expected to seize their legendary treasure. But when his men stormed the commanderies, they found the vaults empty. The vast fortune that had fueled the Templars' power had vanished without a trace. Theories abound. Some say a fleet slipped out of La Rochelle just before the arrests, carrying the treasure to safety. Did it go to Scotland, aiding Robert the Bruce? To Portugal, where the order survived under a new name? Or even across the Atlantic centuries before Columbus? The truth remains elusive. The treasure was never found. The Hospitallers inherited the Templars' lands but not their gold. This disappearance was the Templars' final act of defiance, denying Philip his prize. The legend of the lost treasure endures, fueling centuries of speculation and myth. The Templars' greatest secret was not their wealth, but their ability to make it vanish. Their story lives on, not just for their fall, but for the mysteries they left behind. The Templars' legacy survived in stone, symbol, and skill. Their round churches and carved seals still dot Europe, silent witnesses to their vanished empire. Their financial innovations, letters of credit, secure deposits, were absorbed by rising banking houses, shaping the future of commerce. Former Templar clerks and knights carried their expertise into new institutions, ensuring their methods lived on. Some believe the order survived underground, especially in Scotland and Portugal, passing down rituals and secrets in the shadows. Whether fact or legend, the idea of a hidden Templar tradition has inspired countless stories and conspiracies. Their symbols and codes became part of Europe's cultural DNA. The Templars' knowledge proved harder to destroy than their order. Their story is a reminder: ideas outlast empires. The echoes of the Templars still reverberate, hidden in plain sight. The most enduring theory of Templar survival links them to the Freemasons. Both groups share secret rituals, symbols, and a devotion to brotherhood and higher ideals. Masonic rites often reference the Templars, adopting their imagery and legends. Some claim a direct lineage, especially in Scotland, but historians find little concrete evidence. Most see the Masonic Templar connection as a later invention, a way to borrow the mystique of the medieval knights. Regardless, the myth persists, fueling fascination and debate. The Templar spirit, real or imagined, lives on in the rituals of modern fraternities. Their legend remains a powerful force in the Western imagination. The Templars' story ends not with their destruction, but with their transformation into legend. Their name conjures images of chivalry, betrayal, and hidden knowledge. Their rise and fall warn of the dangers of unchecked power and the fragility of institutions. Myths of lost treasure and secret survival keep their memory alive. The Templars have become symbols, guardians of mysteries, victims of ambition. Their silence is as powerful as their deeds, inviting us to search for truth beneath the legend. They were innovators, warriors, and believers, leaving a mark that endures in myth and memory. The Templars' true legacy is the enduring fascination they inspire. The flames that consumed Jacques de Molay forged an indestructible legacy. The Templars' financial innovations, secure transfers, coded information, international trust, became the backbone of modern banking. Their systems were too valuable to vanish, shaping commerce for centuries. Their downfall is a cautionary tale of state power crushing independent institutions. The Templars' destruction revealed how propaganda and torture can serve political ends. Their story warns of the dangers of unchecked authority and the cost of envy. From their ashes rose ideas that changed the world. The Templars were destroyed, but their influence endures in every ledger and law protecting financial trust. Their legacy is both practical and tragic, a testament to innovation and a warning from history. Among the ruins of Templar commanderies, the past lingers in silence. These stones are no longer centers of power but places of reflection and mystery. The true treasure is the story itself, a tapestry of ambition, faith, and human fallibility. The Templars bridged the worlds of war and finance, their innovations shaping Europe. Their unresolved mysteries invite endless fascination. They are now archetypes, symbols of lost chivalry and secrets just out of reach. Let the stones keep their silence. Their story endures as a quiet whisper in history. The Templars are gone, but their legend remains, echoing through time.